Well, in the process of laying out these two side mainframes for this 11-passenger Yellowstone coach, I have the joint work for the back section made that comes into the rear seat rest, but I have the joints to do on the front end that incorporates the driver's box. And remember, there were two different styles, one where the cross frame sits on top and one where it hangs underneath. And I think I'm going to do the one that sits on top because it makes sense to me that the main frame should carry the cross frame in front just as well as it does in the rear. So that's what I'm going to do before I can go ahead and shape out this boat or belly shape to these side frames. So this is how these two main frames are going to be. This is going to be the section where the floor will be, and these will be the vertical side frames that add support to the main frames. So what I need to do, I'm going to use these side frames as a pattern to drop cut the main frames. And the end of these side frames want to come up and just butt up against this cross frame, both front and rear. I'm going to clamp that into place right about there. And I'll do the same for the front. And this is going to be the drop curve in the main frame. And I did leave these two vertical side frames paired together when I shaped them, but I don't know if they're exactly the same, so I'll make sure they stay with the proper side. They should be interchangeable. So our back curved panel is going to come into this joint here, and I have about 1/8 of an inch here, and this panel is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to come down about another 1/4 of an inch, and that's going to be where this curve is going to come up and should meet right about in this area here. I'll leave it a little strong so I can finish it actually when that panel is installed. But I want that curve to come right up in here, and I'm going to use that old iron as a pattern. So this is where I intersected with that joint on my old piece of wood. So that should be our pattern for this frame. So the last step on these main frames before I do my cross frames is to prepare for what I call again the rib cage. This is going to be the body panels, and it comes down at an angle. So the side of this main frame has to be tapered to accommodate the angle of this rib here. So basically we're coming from a 3/4 inch depth here down to 0. Just like this angle is in this frame. And that'll give us this tapered joint that we have on this 8-passenger frame. So if I just kind of check that angle, be about there. We're going to zero out there. We're going to bottom out here. And that's going to give us, about a 22, 23 degree angle from 0 to this line here. So an easy setup here is 22.5 degrees. And I'm going to remove the bulk of it on my belt sander. Somewhere in there. So this is the front for the driver's seat, and this is the old remnants of that seat, and you can see how this front frame curves forward. So this cross frame here, the leading edge is cut at this angle here. On this cross frame of the 8-passenger, I have that pre-cut, and that looks like about 22 to 23 degrees right there. And I have the remnants of a driver's box of another coach that I rebuilt. And I'll check the angle of that one. That one seems to be right at about 25 degrees. So I set my table at 25 degrees. Now after I glue this joint together, then this will get trimmed off to match this angle here as well. So this is the rear cross frame off of my 8-passenger, but it gives you an idea that this is a fair bit more complicated than my front joint, which was a simple lap joint. I'm going to start out with a lap joint that fits into the joint that I did on the back of these main frames. But then there is a angled kind of a rabbet joint here that allows the floorboard that comes up on this vertical frame to come in and joint into this framework. And then the back panel that comes down, that is the seat back and the main frame of the rear of this coach, it has to come down at this angle here. Remember, this was a 20. This actually measures out at a 25 because this continues around in that curve. So this has to be jointed out to fit into this angle here as well for that back panel. And then this bottom angle here, again, continues in this curve. So there's quite a few angles in this. I'm going to start out with something that is 4.5 inches wide, 1 3/4 thick, and try to duplicate this. Now this whole 11 passenger frame is 1 inch wider than it is off of the 8 passenger, but the joint work is the same. Well, this is a fair bit more complicated in joint work than it is on the front, but it has to incorporate this back curved panel. So from here, I should be able to start to assemble this framework. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.